That's enough. You're going to make yourself ugly, or your children are going to be ugly. That means when you talk behind somebody's back, you gossip, you get rotten inside. You get, your heart gets stink. So you didn't talk behind people's backs. You didn't do that. And if I did something that I shouldn't have been done, as I shouldn't do, I might be told, if your Chana, your grandfather, hears about this, he's going to be real sad. Or your grandmother's going to be real hurt. Or your mother's going to cry. So they would tell us, and we wanted to please them because they were so nice to us. They said if you shout at a child, it gets scared and can't hear. If you strike a child, it gets scared, really scared and can't hear. So they didn't hit us, they didn't yell at us except to get our attention. And if we're having something like this and kids come in making lots of noise, they weren't told to be quiet or to get out. The attitude was maybe these small ones have something to tell us. Run out of steam, maybe one adult would put up a hand like this and we were quiet. They didn't have to tell us to be quiet. We knew what we're supposed to do. Because the rules are, if you interrupt somebody when they're speaking, you cut that person's life. If you get up and turn your back on them and walk out, it's a big insult. So we knew all those things, but we also knew that they would give us a little slack. So when we came in, they would listen. Maybe they might even start discussing what it is we're talking about. There was a kid, Gerald Williams. His nickname was Tubby. His Chana was a Haga. He was a medicine man. He used to doctor people. And Tubby and I used to go to his house all the time. He lived not far from my house. And one day he told us to take this 12-foot skiff and row to the cannery. It's about a mile. So we rowed the skiff down there, and there was a seine boat there by the airplane, where the airplane landed. There was a Niska guide. His name was Benny Burton, from up to Naas. He had a boatload of hooligan, sow, we call him Haida. He had all these sow. So we put the skiff alongside, and the old man was waiting for us. And Benny was selling those for, I think it was 25 cents a bucket. They'd fill up a bucket of these hooligan and then pour them into the skiff. I don't know how many he bought, but then we had to row all the way back. And when we got there, he showed us how to wash them and then to string them and put them in the smokehouse. And after school, we'd run down. It was about half a mile from the school, and it was past my house. And we'd go down and check the fire. And one day they were smelling so good, just couldn't resist. And then Tubby took one. And the old man saw us, and he came out. Kishkwishka! He says, walk over there. So we walked over, and he told us to come in. Sit down, dear boys. I'm going to show you something. He said those Japanese people, they have a duck in Haida we call ngahl. It's a merganser. It's shaped like a bottle. You see them down here at Falls Creek. But they're diving birds. And these Japanese would tie string on that duck's neck. And they'd know where the fish was, and they'd let the duck, and it would dive down, catch a fish, and it'd come back up, and they had that string tied on, so they'd pull it to the boat and take the fish out of its mouth and put it in the bucket, and the duck would go down again. And he told us, he said they tied that string on it so it couldn't get away. And also it was tied on its string, on that string on its neck so it couldn't swallow that fish. If I catch you boys eating my sow again, I'm going to tie a string on your neck. So he didn't get mad at us, he didn't yell at us, but he told us a little story. And that's true about the Japanese using those stories to do that. So that's what I mean about this straight line to the highest values is what was always what you aim for, is to make sure, because you are the future of these children. Whatever they're going to be is what you teach them or what you don't teach them. And you can't teach them by just yelling at them, but you've got to demonstrate. Like if you got your cell phone, turn it off when you're around your kids, otherwise they're going to be staring at them. And I've worked with about 600 families now in the last 12 years, and we're starting to see a change in the kids because of those phones. Many of them are having trouble speaking sentences by the time they're 7 years old. They should have been doing that when they're 5. And so you have to guide them. There's a prophecy that says that the medicine people will be called back from the earth by the tears of the children. And I don't know how many of you saw that thing in Washington, D.C., those thousands of young people that went there because so many shootings in the schools. That's the tears of the children. And not too long ago, worldwide, kids walked away from their schools to try to get the governments to do something about global climate change. Well, that's the tears of the children. So what that means is now our responsibility is to guide them, not to bend them and try to make them be like us, but listen to them. They may have grandiose ideas, but listen. Who knows, maybe those things will work. And so if we're successful in doing those things with those children, it says a great society will rise up out of that, and everything will go back into balance. But there's a couple other things tied to it too. One said that the strange ones would come among us with good sounding words, but like the cedar that grows tall and straight grained and has twin tops, when sounded it's hollow in the middle and the heart is stink. Be careful, because some of our people are like that too. My cousin Percy Nix and I were looking for a cedar to make an ocean-going canoe, and we found one that was about this big around. Great big one. And anyway, we call him Buster Nix. Two of his boys were basketball players, Alfred and Steve. But anyway, he said, look at that. They had twin tops. We had a chainsaw with 6-foot bar on it. He said, I want to find out. So he started that chainsaw, and he pushed it all the way into that tree. And when he pulled it out, it was just like a fire hose. The water comes shooting out there. Gee, it was stink. The center of the tree was rotten. I don't know why it had filled up with water, but the center of the tree was rotten. And they said these strange ones would arrive on a vessel made of wood pulled by the wind. And they would make a bigger one, and a bigger one, then they would make one out of something harder than stone that would pull itself through the water, and the vibrations from that thing will cause great disruptions in the ocean. And they would make a thing that would fly with wings that didn't move. And they'd make a bigger one and a bigger one, and then they'd make this huge one that would stop flying, and humans would return to moving across the face of the waters in a vessel made of wood pulled by the wind, and the ocean will welcome back the gentle hand of the mate. So those are all seeming to come together. We talked about climate change, all these things when I was growing up. And I forgot to introduce myself, so the kids, here's the way we do it. Kikwailam is gan de joslam is gan hat alas is tamat kila aula. Pawan sama inudik ya am. Dik is hat aben. Jetlanas hat I would agent. hikta handlai was region. My brothers, my sisters, you good people, Tikitlam, my children, I'm happy to talk to you. I'm Northern Haida, East Thai. East are rocks that have been, lava rocks that have been fused together. You find them on Langara Island. We call it Keys-Kwai. But they're different colors that have been fused together. Keys is something very old, but it also can symbolize a unit complete unto itself. But that's where we stayed after the ice when we moved back north. It was called East Lamai. It's a camp on a rock sticking out of the ocean. Then later it became Keys. And I'm also the two-headed eagle crest. And my village, Hikta Handlai. In English it's called Heidelberg, but in Haida it's called by the fresh water where everybody goes to eat. But what I wanted to do today is we were supposed to learn a song, I guess, but I don't know how much time we got for it. But anyway, that coming in song, that song, the Tlingit people of a place called Kutsnau, today it's called Angoon, Alaska, used to always fight with the people of Sagwa, the north end of the land. It's the village that used to be across the channel from where Heidelberg is now. But those two were always fighting about something. The Tlingits were always coming down. They were invading all the time from the north. And one time Haidas decided they're going to have it out. So they headed north. And there's a place now called Tlawak that was one of our major sources of salmon. But Haidas let them camp there. And they went by and they're on the way going to go fight with those people in Kutsnau. And then when they started north, they left early in the morning. And pretty soon they heard somebody yelling at them. And they turned and there's a small canoe chasing them. He was yelling, turn back, it's a trap, turn back. So they turned back. In this camp where all these Tlingits were, all the men were gone. So they went in and they rounded up everybody they could catch, and they dug a trench on the beach and made them go in there. And they killed a whole lot of them. And then they headed for home. And as they were going through, today it's called Canoe Pass, they saw some bodies floating. And the village was on fire. There was a village that said there was 5,000 people lived there. It was a whole big area. And so when the fight, they went after the people who did it, and they cornered them. A place, it hit up, but there was too many of them. So Haidas were driven back into this big bay, and it got dark. So during the night, they packed these big canoes over this little tongue of land so they could get away. And then those others went on down around, it's called Intan Kun. Cape Shaken is the south end of Prince of Wales Island. They went that way to go home. So Haidas decided it's time we just have it out once and for all. So they got ready, and they sent people out to spread rumors that Haidas were going to hide all the women and kids on Kusklu. It's an island 8 miles out into the Gulf of Alaska. Today it's called Forster Island. But to get there you have to go through a strong tide place called Jutsik, and that's where we lived during the time of the flood. When the flood came, was there at Jutsik. And then as you go west from there, out this narrow channel, today it's called Mirror's Passage. To the south was a village called where the halibut spawned. And then from there it's open ocean out to Forster Island. That's where that song came from too, that Eagle Dance song. What they're singing is where it's talking about where the water is moving. Because when the tide is going out, the waves get big. And so when they talk about Agagwana is the spirit of the ocean. What they're doing is they're calling to the spirit of the ocean to keep the waves small so that we can make a safe journey to our destination. But in there they have the eagle circling. And when the eagle begins to lose altitude, it flaps its wings to pick up airspeed and altitude. And then it glides on the fourth one. And so this is the rhythm of paddling too when you're traveling long ways in the canoe. Is you take three strokes and then you rest for one. And 3 strokes and rest for one. It's called eagle flies. But anyway, so they put that word out, and then they had spies watching, and they know what it is. They figured they're going to come wipe us out. So they got everybody together, and they came down. And as they come through Mirror's Passage, fighters were waiting on both sides. It's fairly narrow, about a mile across. And but somehow they got past in the dark. And when they got to Forster Island, when the attack started, these Tlingits were really good fighters. Once the attack started, they don't back off. And there was cliffs there, and people got ready for that. And they cooked the sea lion fat, so they had lots of oil. And they piled rocks, so they'd have rocks to throw down off this cliff. And the Tlingits were trying to scale those cliffs, and they poured that hot oil down on them and made it slippery too. And they're throwing rocks down on them and shooting at them with arrows, but the Tlingits just kept coming. They felled trees against the cliff to try to get up. They said the fight went on most of the day, and this gully where they were was filling up with bodies. So the Haida leader called down. He said, the rest of you, if you want to go home, you can leave with honor. So they got in their canoes and started to leave. And from up on the rocks, they saw something flashing in the sun toward the big island. So the canoes went, and here's this one guy was swimming for his life. They considered him a coward, so they just busted his head and let him sink there. And so when they got home, they talked about this and decided enough is enough. We're about to wipe out both sides. So they sent a man named Kunpayan. Kunpayan is also my grandfather's name. That's a whale that makes a big splash coming into life. He went and talked to them and said if they want to stop fighting, come talk to us. So they came down to Sagwakwan. And there's an island just south of the cannery in Heidelberg. Today it's called Dago's Island. And they met on that island. And all the women, the kids, the old ones were ashore from this little island. There's a sand spit there when the tide is out. So they talked for a long time. Finally, smoke went up. People knew agreement had been reached. By this time it was dark, and so when the people came out of the woods and they were crossing that sand spit, they were singing that song. Ah hey, hey. The high-class women, the ones who walk in the rights of chiefs, were dancing with their hands up here. They were doing this way, and the other ones were dancing this way. And so one woman had a very powerful voice, and you could hear her voice echo from across the channel. So for many years that song was sung with that echo in it. In 1972, I think it was, I was at Tyonek, Alaska, and there was a Dene man sitting over there, and he was singing that song. And I said, do you know either song? He said, no, that's one of ours. I said, no, that's our song. It was said after that fight that anybody who stops fighting among themselves or with their neighbors, they can use this song. This is going to be our peace song. So that's what that Ahe song is really all about. It's also for the entrance song of coming into the house. But that's how it evolved over time. So our songs are also a part of this year. We have to know about our songs so that we can always go to the highest values of our population. And then this other thing too, it's called Sifkan Usao Gaza. That's a word for prayer. But what it means is I'm asking for my own sake. I can't ask for any of you because I can't know what it is you need. I can't know what it is you want. But see, the church has priests that are supposed to be closer to God than the rest of everybody else. So that's why they make the prayers to God, because their prayers are stronger than ours. But ours are ones where we talk about Shimspanwai, the big spirit in the atmosphere. It's so big it fills the whole universe in every fiber of my being. So it's right in here. It's not up there someplace else. So when I had a stroke, my side was sterilized like this. My dad's older brother, Kum Squeeze, Round Moon, came to see me. And he told me, he said, in our way, used to be when we're real sick or hurt real bad, we didn't pray to be restored because we didn't know that that was what was meant to be. Instead, we'd call the Atlanteo Kyagangam. The Atlanteo Kyagangam. My spirit calls, take a look, see what I need. And then leave it at that and do what you have to do, try to restore yourself. Well, I don't know if that's what did it, but it all works now. I was in a wheelchair, couldn't brush my teeth, comb my hair, and so when we start talking about our own rules, in English they call this social control by obligation and negotiation. In other words, there's certain things that we have to do, and there's certain things that we can sort of negotiate. But if you break these, or is that supposed to be next? It's called Hanana. Hanana is if you do something and break one of the taboos, that means it'll come back on you. Amas, Hanana. Amas. Hanana. They're warning you, don't do that, it's going to come back on you. And so it's almost like you turn over a rock and you let something out and you can't put it back. So you don't say mean things to animals, you don't kick animals, you don't kick children, you don't hit women, you don't sneak around and cheat your friends. You treat everybody the way you're supposed to, because we're all related. So when people make that prayer and say, all my relations, in Haida it's Gitaolam, all my relatives. And what that means is, if I go hunting, I never say what I'm looking for. I'm not going to say I'm going hunting deer, I'm going duck hunting or whatever. Because when I name it, I'm saying you have no say in this relationship. Instead, I say I'm going to go take a look around. And if that being presents itself, I either accept the gift or I say, I'm going to give this one back. You always give back the first one. That way, if somebody else comes along, there's going to be one for them. Whether it's a deer, whether it's a bush full of berries or a tree full of crab apples, whatever. When we're singing, the first set of the season, when you bring the bunch of money bag alongside, Dad would get down the skiff and he'd watch the fish until the biggest one, he said, he'd grab it and he'd turn around, he'd set it in the ocean, he'd say, more to come. So he'd always give back before you take. See, before residential school, we were taught that there would be 4 values: trust, share, help each other, and give back. But residential school taught you don't trust, they'll cheat you. Don't share, they'll end up with more than you. Don't help, because the only way to the top is look out for number 1. And don't give back, you can never have too much. And so this has become like the 10 Commandments, thou shalt not. Don't do any of these things. So now reconciliation is where we start doing this. This is where we're beginning to reestablish the good relationship we had with ourselves. We never had a good one with the Europeans. But anyway, I was going to wear my t-shirt again. I keep forgetting it. But
would the equivalent be what for those,
this one?
For the values?
The values?
Yeah, for the 4
They're just what I'm saying. Those values of when you live in a big house, everybody's living in one room. There's always the possibility of causing somebody some discomfort. So you go out of your way to not bump into people. You go out of your way not to say mean things to people. You go out of your way to tease instead of mocking. In the movie about the edge of the knife, when they were cutting halibut, and the woman said, throw it in the ocean. I think she meant to say, place it in the ocean. But what he did was he threw it on the beach. And so the ocean spirit was angry because he treated it with disrespect. So that's why Canaan got his nephew, or his son, he got them, because they didn't treat it properly. And that's what those values are, is that's my relatives. I gotta be kind to them. It's the same way with us men. We have to be kind and gentle to the weaker ones and to our sisters. We have to always protect, provide for, walk alongside our women, and never interfere in their search for their own special place. So we'll be covering those as we go along. It's rather than giving you just a laundry list. The stories in there, there's the story of a giant halibut that swallowed a little boy. He was making fun of him, kicking him, calling him big mouth. And he was told, that's no. But it's the story turns out pretty good. But so those stories all have those values in them. And so there's no moral to the story. That's a parable. That's the church stories. Ours, the story is the message. So you have to hear the whole story. You can't just pick and choose pieces out of it. And then some of the other concepts too. In English, you say the sun is coming up. In Haida, the sun is going up. In English, the sun is going down. In Haida, the sun is coming down. So the sun is going up and coming down, not coming up and going down. It's opposite. And also, in English, the past is behind me. In Haida, it's in front of me. What agree means it's way over there, but I can see it from here. So you keep your history in front of you because our ancestors laid down a path for us. And so by keeping our history in front of us, we can always see if we're in a straight line. When you're traveling on a boat, you look back once in a while at the wake of the boat and you can see if you're going in a straight line or it looks like you're serpentining. So that's the way it's done. But the only one that faced the other way was the nephew, what they call Natyaku, the true nephew. When they're traveling, everybody's facing toward the bow. The person steering, the chief or the uncle, and his nephew sits back to back with him. That's what they call it. My uncle told me about this man that told him, we sit back to back. That meant that he's to inherit the chieftainship. And so there's Natyaku, which is the true nephew, and then there's one called Kuswan, the other one of equal rank. So if something happens to that first one, you know who the next one in line is for that. So as they're traveling in a canoe, the one looking back can tell his uncle if something threatening is coming from behind. But also as they're traveling, he can see land features looking in that direction, and they describe it to his uncle. So when they turn around to go back, his uncle always knows where they are. And also when there were speeches to be made, that nephew would make the speech, not his uncle. Because words are so powerful, they can cause lots of trouble. So some words were taken and put in a box and put the lid on and tied it shut. And they were only taken out when it was appropriate. A woman's power is greater than a man's. So Sahl Ju, this woman of great calm and presence, would put a wooden plug in her lip, and it made it painful to speak. So she would consider every word she was going to use before she uttered the first one. So if the nephew is speaking and the nephew says something improper, it doesn't attach directly to the chief, but it's to that nephew who shamed his uncle. So all these little things in there were all designed to give balance. But I was going to wear my t-shirt that says help, I'm talking, I can't stop. I thought, well, since Kelly's got his drum here, maybe he can teach people that coming that different song. Oh, hey, hey. I brought my drum. I brought my boombox too. I don't know if, what it is. It's the old ones at home in 1968. My grandmother was 83, and Jessie Natcon, I think she was only 80. But they're singing those songs on that CD. And I one time had a bunch of copies made, and I gave them out, and I don't know, but I've still got this one, and I'll see if I can get some copies made, because that song is on there and a whole bunch of others, and so you can hear them singing those songs. And I've got a bunch of other CDs with the Masset language on it. And I've got a bunch of videos with the Skidegate dialect on it. And then I've got that one CD with the Haida.
Are you going up to the language conference?
Huh?
To the language conference? Haida language conference? I think it's in a couple weeks.
Yeah, it's supposed to be in Masset, is it? Yeah, Skidegate. I'm not going to be able to go to that one. But I'm going to go to the one in Victoria in June. That international. So if you have any other questions, gee, that gum must taste good. Could I have some? Usually when we were kids, if you want a piece of gum, but today, so yeah, if you have any questions, yeah, we can just go with that song. I brought my little drum. I don't know if I showed all of you this one, but this is is a tattoo design. This one here. This one here is half bird and half human. It's a shapeshifter. The ancient Egyptians had one called Horus, Horus, and it had the head of a falcon in the body of a human. It was a shapeshifter, and it brought healing, and that's what this one did. And so we took the things we learned from this one and put it into Raven. So I don't know the story of this one. It wasn't told to me because they were afraid people would change it. But I was pretty young when they started teaching me these things. I saw this picture in anthropologist had done a drawing off the Haida man's back, the tattoo of this. But the name he put on it was Ooh La La. No, it's not French, it's Haida. Ooh La La. Ooh La La. And then this one, these frogs, they sort of represent reincarnation. In the fall, the frogs freeze. They stay frozen till spring, they thaw, and they come back to life. And so, I don't know about us, but the other peoples on the coast here, their ceremonies began when a frog would freeze. And ceremonial time ended when the frog became thawed out and moving again. And ta'am, the salmon, they're very powerful medicine people who make long journeys. So our villages were never built by streams with salmon in them because we didn't want to disturb them, and that's another one of those values. And so all of our drinking water came from springs, from underwater. Heidelberg is the only village I know of that was built by flowing water, but that was selected by the missionaries. And because the village had been across the channel to Safwan, and so anyway, it's the first one. And when they were putting in a water line, there was a big fish camp there. They found skeletons of people that had to be around 7 feet tall. It's the same way at Cape Nuzon, where the village of Kwekpani, the poles with the bones in there. My mom's cousin, he was about 6'4", and one of the bones was laying there that connected the elbow to the wrist. And he put it by his elbow, and it went out past the end of his hand. That's how big those people were. And so the Spaniard said the average height of male was only 5 foot 10 inches tall, weighed about 240 pounds. This is when everybody else was about 5 foot 6. So,
that's how tall Haidas were?
Yeah, my grandfather was around 6'2" or 6'3", big tall man. So, our song leader. So I sing a peace song now, so to stop fighting. All you gotta sing along too.
Wow, first I'm gonna give you lyrics.
I'm a honky tonk man.
What does that mean?
That means it's over. You're in the house now. Well, there's two other parts to it. The announcement part is at the beginning, you have somebody runs in the house. Amad, Jasil Gilmilgam, Amia, Jasil Gilmilgam, Amia, something strange is happening, get ready. And then there's an announcement song, they sing that from outside, and then they start singing this one as they're coming to the house. So, this is a good beginning. I hope the sound stays in your mind. That's the way it does, that's the way it works. So, is there anything you want to say about it though, Kelly?
I'm just basically learning it myself through the urban Haida dance group. Just entering the house song, right? I enjoyed singing it because it's so able to sing it so loud, and I think I'm getting better at it. My confidence is getting better at singing. I'm doing a lot of practicing myself too, doing singing. I sing at the soil lodges. I'm able to help build my confidence there. And I'm hoping to do that here and at the Haida dance practice that we have every Sunday. I have a lot of other people out that are learning it with me, and I want to get back into it again.
Where is that?
We're having it at Presley and Jamie's today. We have it every Sunday, usually 1 o'clock at the Billerud Art Gallery. And but today we're having it at Jamie and Presley's. We're having a little potluck. So if anybody's wants to go, come check it out. But yeah, still learning. I'm still in the learning process of singing, learning the songs. But I do enjoy singing it because it makes me feel good about myself, and very, very honored to sing it when I do sing. Oh,
You could have fooled me that you're just learning.
Yeah.
You're all right. I do have the words, a number of the songs printed out, and I'll make copies of them, and I'll see if I can get some copies of this CD made, and I will identify which song goes with which one is on a CD.
I have the other songs on a record player too at home. One day I have all the elders in the 70s.
Are those big LPs?
Yeah.
Yeah, I heard those. Yeah, they're pretty good. There was a woman on there, I think her name was White Cloud. In Haida, that's a woman who predicts the weather.
Huh.
So yeah, we can do those things, and another part of it is, at the end of this 6 months, I guess it is, however long it is, we're going to be doing a ceremony called Alai Hikyas, dancing under the paddle. My Chana was the keeper, And he did it, the last time he did it was in 1940. It was against the law, so they had to do it in secret. In 1982, my uncle, who was my grandfather's younger brother, Louis Kitcoon, he had the name Kajinsama. He and my dad's oldest sister and my dad and their cousin Clara Natkong and Alice Kitcoon, they passed that ceremony to me and told me that that was my responsibility now to lead that ceremony. But I didn't do it until, about 3 years ago, I guess, over at the Friendship Center, and I was a little bit afraid to do it. One, I didn't have the confidence because I hadn't really done it. And secondly, I didn't want there to be too big of a crowd of people because there's some that really go nuts when they say women are human. And this is one where it really talks about the woman's magic of harmony, that the only requirement to be human is to be born of a woman. So in ours, it says that, well, like in English, you hear people say low man on a totem pole. Well, in Haida, that's as incorrect as you can get. Because with that big frontal pole, the top figure is the crest of the man who commissioned it. He's the house chief. And then his uncle, his mother's brother. And then his family, and so on, till you get to the bottom figure. Now that's the wife of the man who commissioned the pole. And so they dig a hole and they put it in there, and then when they stand it up, it's called Gya'am. Gya'am means now your history standing straight up. That woman's feet is in the water, her body's in the land, her upper torso is in the air. So it says that female energy ties together water, earth, and sky. And her husband's family is all balanced on her shoulders. If she loses her balance, it all falls. So not only does that female energy tie together water, earth, and sky, but the balance of the cosmos is entirely dependent upon the strength and stability of that female energy. And that's the whole basis of our culture. Even the house. It might be my house, but it'd be paid for by my wife, and her family would pay for the construction of that house. So even though it said that it's my house because it has my crest on it, it comes from my wife. And then I was at a wedding feast in Masset, and I'd just gotten off the ferry, and so I was sitting there kind of like a ptarmigan trying to hide. And well, we used to have lots of ptarmigan on Alaska's side, but Martin killed them all. Anyway, next thing you know, there's a microphone in front of my face. And so I didn't know what else to tell him, so I told him that people say that Haidas have long arms and short legs, and they make fun of us for it. And anthropologists said it's from sitting in a canoe and paddling so much your legs get short from not using them, and the arms get long, you know, from paddling. And our women, though, they're not that generous with us. They say, no, it gets like that because men are lazy. They're sitting there, instead of getting up to get something, they just reach for it, and the arm gets longer and longer and longer like that, and the legs get short. But the truth of the matter is, that comes from marriage. When a young woman starts reaching the age of puberty, she would weave a labouche that was about this size, seed bark mat. And during the marriage ceremony, the two people would sit on that mat to symbolize the unity that it's all woven into one. And the only way that relationship could be broken was if the man could tear it in half. So the boy is not knowing whether they're going to get a woman that's going to be kind to him or going to be mean to him. So they start practicing, learning to try to tear that thing. They'd stand on it and pull real hard. And that's how their legs got short and their arms got long. That's almost the truth. So you gotta have fun with stuff, you know? We never knew when these guys were pulling a fast one off. But they would laugh at us. Even little things. Monty Brown, I don't know how many of you knew Monty Brown. He was from my dad's clan. And I was about 15 years old, and we had a sliver on one of the cables, and it scratched my face. And I was down in the galley, standing in front of the mirror, trying to put some medicine on it. And Monty said, "What are you doing, Sonny?" I said, "I'm putting medicine on my face." He said, "Let me see." He said, "There's no medicine for ugly."
Oh, no.
But they used to do stuff like that. And Pat Weir, you know, he's a great big guy, and he's also my dad's family. We were having lunch and having soup. Oh, damn. I said, "What's the matter?" He said, "I missed my mouth." I said, "How could you miss something that big?" What's her name? His daughter. She said, "He's going to punch you." Oh, punch him back. But see, our humor doesn't have words in it, unlike the European. We can make fun of each other. If I tease you, I like you. If I'm polite to you, maybe I don't. So when people tease you about staring down at your belly button, gee, that must be interesting over there. I guess we'll have to quit and go look at the screens. But with these cell phones, one old man, Tlingit the first time he got one, this was in the 1990s, I guess, something like that. He was in this Fred Meyer's store and his phone rang. "Hello? How did you know I was here?" So when you answer your phone, here's the words you use. Daco is. Daco is. Daco is. Que. The other person might say no. Is that you? No, I'm beside myself. Or if it's you, you say Claudian. Now these two A's together are pronounced like the A in father, ah. A single A is pronounced like the U in son, like so this should be two A's. Da, 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 da. So it's, I got this backwards, da, D-A-K-W. Doc O is Doc O is Doc O is then La U Ejum. Yes, it's me. Then you can say your name. So if any of you still use your phones to talk on, I heard my Aunt Esther next, you know, the phone rang, she picked it up, and she says, "Oh, hello, Ethan." Gadu was what they called her. And I was visiting with my Uncle Louis, and his wife called somebody. And the first thing she said was that Doco is that you? I'm calling. And so that's the way they would do it all the time, those old ones. Is they can have fun with that. Doco is that you? No. No is like saying gay. But it's pronounced gay. Gay. Somebody asked, "What are you, queer?" And I said, "Gay." And they said, "What's the difference?" That's no. See, like I said, you gotta have some fun with this stuff. You know, when you laugh and have fun, your mind is really open. You really, but gay, it's not me. So what I'm doing here is, before we actually get into some of the language itself, I really want you to understand what it is you're getting into. I want you to understand who we are, about our history. And so when you start answering questions and discussing things, you'll see the world in a different way. Instead of saying, "Oh, my past is," put it behind you. It's like you're in a river, and the past is in front of me, everything that goes in past me. When it comes into view, I have to deal with it right then, because it will never be there again. I can't see the future coming. Every once in a while, like in rivers, something will come downstream and it'll swing in and hit me in the face. If I put it behind me, like I'm told, a traumatic experience, it's going to hit me in the face again. So I have to learn to let it go, to watch, to see how it fits into my history. And when we talk about the past, awas is just, it's over there. Hagui means it's way over there. What's Hagui on Klangon? It's over past the ice, at the time of the ice. It leads to Hagui. It leads to Hagui is during the time of the ice there was a warming period, and that's when the tide came, and that's when the flood happened. Was between Wat Hagui and Wat Hagui and Klangon. It leads to. And then when you get past the ice, then we go way to Tladlu Hagui. Tladlu Hagui is when we came over the horizon into the light. That was before we were human. We were humanoid. And it took us a long time to learn to be human. The creation account. Creation, the way it's told, is like suddenly, bang, everybody came into being just the way we are now, and speaking our language and all that. I said, no, we have a lot to learn. And so our history tells of traveling on the land. I met oral history keepers. One was from the Erie people, who was the keeper of the Oneida history. And their history says they came from around the Caspian Sea area. And then there's some people in New Zealand we call the cloak people. They call themselves Waitaha, the water carriers. But their history tells of coming from somewhere around Turkey also. And they came to us during the time of the ice, and we got this huge brown bear skin from them to keep us warm during the time of the hard cold. And we taught them to travel on the ocean, and they left. In 1996, I got a call from a filmmaker. I always get her name wrong. Mita Marita, or it's Marita Mita. Anyway, she's no longer with us, but she called and said she had interviewed some old ones who knew the stories of the highbog canoes that came from the north. And if I wanted to hear them to come to New Zealand to Aotearoa. So I telephoned my dad. He was 83 at the time. I said, "Hey Dad, you want to go to New Zealand?" He said, "My bags are packed." So he flew down here and we flew to Hawaii. We spent a week or so there getting used to the heat, and we flew to Samoa. And I got to sit on a panel dealing with non-instrument navigation, talking about how our canoes navigated to get there. And then when we got to New Zealand, there was a television festival going on, and I ran into Loretta Todd, was there at the festival. And so I went to where the lady was that had called me, but she didn't have time to talk, so we went to the home of some Maori people that I'd met before to stay with them. And we just walked in the door and the phone rang, and the mother picked up the phone. She said, "It's for you." Me? There was nobody in the world knew where we were. We hadn't told anybody. And this guy says, "Hi, Woody, it's Harry." "That's Rick?" "Yeah." Well, this is 1996, and I hadn't seen him since around 1990 or earlier. And he said, there's a man at Waikato University who's writing the history of Maori people. Maybe, I think you should meet him. He said, "Here's his name and his phone number, write it down." So I did. And he says, "Gotta go," and he hung up. I never heard from him again, never seen him again. So I asked the grandmother, I said, "Do you know who this person is?" She said, "That's a good person to meet. My mokopuna, my granddaughter, will drive you there." So Dad and I went. And we met this guy, and he asked me if I had a tribal name. I told him I had 3 of them. And the last one, Kansana. That's a person who brings a special day. And he told us, wait, and he left the room and came back with a little black box, it was about this thick deep. And he gave it to me, and inside were owl feathers. Then he gave me 4 pieces of jade. And I had no idea what this is all about. And he asked, "Where are you going to be?" So Afina, the Maori granddaughter, told him where we were going to be at a naming ceremony, because I was giving my Haida name to this Maori boy, Kansana. And so we went there, the phone rang, and it was this Maori talk. No, first it was the historian. He said, "Some elders want to meet you. Is that okay?" And I said, "Yeah." I said, "Can I bring my dad?" And I said, "Bring anybody you want." And I said, "Okay, there's a Hopi guy, Victor Masiepsa. Can I bring him?" "Yeah, go ahead." So the next morning we met them, and one guy handed me a cane. It's about this tall, carved lots of notches on it. It's like an eel that's swallowing its own tail. And they told me that had 9,000 years of their genealogy on it, and I was the only one who could carry it. And I said, "Well, my dad's older than me, so I'll give him, he'll carry it." They said, "But when we reach home, he has to give it back to you." So we went to their house, and they started telling their history. And I started getting a little bit vertigo, a little dizzy, because there's no possible way they could know that. It was the same history I was taught, about the ice, about that giant bear, about the names, and about traveling down the coast, being trapped by the ice, and all the rest of that stuff. They knew all of it. So there was a prophecy that they said that lots of American Indians had come there trying to fulfill. And he had an armload of these talking sticks about this big. And he brought them out. And he said, the prophecy said that when this man arrived from the north, would signal it was time for the peaceful ones to take over. But there were a couple of things we didn't tell anybody about that prophecy. One, that this person would have something to do with a special day. Two, we wouldn't find this person until just before he's supposed to leave. And the third thing we didn't tell him was that he'd be accompanied by something called anasazi. And that Hopi guy, he started getting frantic. He didn't have any corn pollen with him. because the Navajos called him Anasazi. It says when all those four things, the arrival, and see when we arrived, they took me aside and told me I was going to have to leave because my passport was expiring in 3 days. So we had to leave that evening after we met with them. So this was just before I was to leave. But it had nothing to do with me or Victor. It was just those were the conditions. And I found out from Loretta later that same day after we'd met with them, those Waitama people who'd been driven from North Island to South Island by the Polynesian Maori were moving back to North Island. And they were like Haidas, they were tall, fair-skinned people. And so all these things, they're all tied in one way or another. So when we start going back to our own stories, to our own values, and start treating each other the way we're supposed to, that's what reconciliation is among us. We have to reconcile ourselves with ourselves, because there's really nothing we can do with them. They're so violent. They're so greedy. They're always trying to get to the top. Skuju means they're grabbers. They can't stop grabbing. The only way they can stop grabbing is to give back. So there's lots of Europeans that want to go to our way. They want to learn from us. Those are those allies. So the more we know about ourselves, the less we fight among ourselves too. And the more that these other people can learn about us, the more they want to be like us. So anyway,
So the Maori people and the Haida people, are they our relatives?
no, the Maori are different from the white. That's how we got our clan name, Tsech. If you want to Google it. Google this bird, Pacific golden plover. About this time of the year in New Zealand, they start, like maybe it's in March, but they'll fly straight up, just almost like rockets, just going straight up until they almost disappear. Then they come down until they're about the height of the ceiling. Then they pull up and they go up again and come down and go up again and come down. They do this over a period of a couple of weeks, getting ready to fly. And then when they leave New Zealand, one flyway takes them along the coast of Asia and they go up into Siberia to nest. The other ones come across the Pacific. They fly over Fiji and Tonga and those places and over Hawaii. They can make landfall down Haida country. Then they go up into the Arctic in northern Alaska where they have their young. In the fall, they fly all the way back to New Zealand. In the spring months, our canoes used to go out into the Gulf of Alaska off of Ani or Cape Luzon today. They go out 2 days, and the Japanese current is traveling south. It comes along the Gulf of Alaska going south. And there's another current that comes from south along the coast and comes north called the Humboldt Current. I told this before, the guy who said they sailed from South America to Polynesia with a raft made of balsa wood. And when I started telling him, he said, I don't know if that's true. I asked, well, who are you to be skeptical? You claim to have sailed from South America to Polynesia. He said, we did. I said, no, you didn't. You got the Chilean Navy that towed you 200 miles offshore because you couldn't get past that Humboldt Current. It kept taking you north. He said, oh, that's just a mere detail. So anyway, as the canoes are drifting south, they'd hear these fur seals coming north. And then they would move into that tide line and they would take what they needed. But while they're waiting, they'd see these huge flocks, thousands of these birds coming from out in the ocean, coming across the Pacific, and they thought they were seabirds because there's no land out there. And then one fall, 4 hiders got caught by a southeaster. They were fishing for blackcod, and they got caught, and they had to ride it out. And it's a very long story, but they ended up on this huge rock sticking out of the ocean where they weathered the storm. And then when they started home, those birds were passing over, to recognize them. But they knew which direction to go home, but they started to follow those birds, and one of them came fluttering down. So they pulled alongside and lifted out of the water with a paddle and put it in a canoe, and they had some water there. And then they saw its feet. It didn't have webbed feet. So they knew it was a land bird. So they knew there was land out there. So the next spring, when they got home, they told people what happened. So this camp became Chatlana. Chet is that bird, Lana is a village, and that's where we get our clan name from, Chatlana. But anyway, so over a long period of time, following those birds and also the ocean current and navigating by stars, they saw a shadow on the horizon one evening. So the next day they went, and there was an island there. And there was a river coming down from the waterfalls, but it didn't come straight out. It kind of paralleled the shore and it came out. So they went in there in their canoes, these 2 canoes. And there was fresh water. So they named the island Guantlas. Guantlas is island with fresh water. And then they saw the birds kept going. So over a long period of time, they decided they're going to see where those things were going. And one time when they stopped there at Huntlaws, there was people on the beach, and they motioned for them to come in, so they went in. And that's where you have the giant green sea turtle. It's got the white head and the black lines on it. I didn't bring mine with me, my copper. But the shape of that copper comes from the top of the head of that sea turtle. That's where that shape is. And they still come along Prince Wales Island. And when they saw them out there by Huntlaws, they believe that when something makes a long journey, it goes to gain knowledge. So they assume that these things carry great knowledge. But anyway, they met the people on the beach who called themselves Kanaka. And so that sea turtle was called Kanakas Kostan, Hawaiian crab. Kanagas, really gets into it, instead of just Kanakas, because of the way when a crab swims, the way its legs move, it's how that sea turtle. So it was also called, the name was crab. A frog is called a bush crab, Jitgan Kostan. And the Dungeness crab is just Kostan. So we got to those islands before the Polynesians, and they'd been there for a while before we finally met up. And what we were using for navigation was called, thought is that 5 female sea otter being chased by hunters, is that what it is? The Pleiades?
7.
7, yeah, there's anyway, our description of the Pleiades, whereas with the Polynesians, the Hawaiians, they call it the worm in the sky. When the worm's in the sky, they pull their canoes way up, because that's when the wind would change from a trade wind that comes from the east all the time, would turn around and come from the west, and that's when the storms would begin. So when the Pleiades, or the female sea otter and hunters were in the sky, the canoes were pulled up and they didn't put them back in the water until they passed. So all that, it all fits in all those stories. It takes weeks to tell all these stories. And so anyway, that's where our relationship with the Polynesians was. See, one day we used the word ha. Ha is the root word for your soul or your spirit here. Whereas with the Hawaiians, it's also ha. When they say ha oli, calling somebody a haoli, ha oli means without the breath of life. So it's that same word, ha. Egyptians used the word ra, R-A. And I forget what the Mayans used, but anyway, this is how we got there by following these birds. My ear also plugs up, my nose just. Maybe that means stop. How many of you knew, what is her name? Arnie Bellis's grandmother, Nora Bellis.
That's my grandmother.
She was quite the storyteller and one heck of a singer. She and Todd's great-grandmother used to yodel when they'd sing. Gee, they were good. But anyway, when Nani Nora was talking, she'd say, "Somebody stop me! Somebody stop me!" So somebody stopped me. Can I have coffee? Oh, here's the word for stop.
Okay, can you hand it up to 1 o'clock?
On.
They're not kicking us out yet.
Stop. So, pretty soon they're going to start their church music.
2
Seems like
o'clock.
we're always pestered by them, no matter what we do.
2 o'clock, I think they start.
Oh, is that what they do?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. How long are we here for?
Well, 12 to noon, but you were late, so they haven't kicked us out yet.
They said we could stay all day when I asked them.
Yeah,
So you want to try one?
I'm gonna have a smoke.
Little break. We'll be back. Thank you for viewing.